PACER stands for Progressive Aerobic Cardiovascular Endurance Run. The PACER is one of the test options for estimating aerobic capacity in the FitnessGram. The PACER is a valid and fun option for estimating aerobic capacity. The objective of PACER is for the student to run as long as possible back and forth across a 20-meter distance and at a specified pace that gets faster each minute. The push-up is one of the test options used to measure upper body strength and endurance in the FitnessGram. The objective of the push-up is to complete as many 90-degree push-ups as possible and to do so at a set cadence or pace.
Up 1, down, up 2.
The student performs the push-up up to the cadence of one push-up every 3 seconds by following the voice commands for down, up. The student is permitted one break in form. A form break occurs when the student is not achieving The curl-up is the only test option used to measure abdominal strength and endurance in the FitnessGram. The goal of the curl-up is to complete as many curl-ups as possible, up to a maximum of 75, and to do so at a set cadence or pace.
We'll begin the curl-ups now. Ready? Begin. Up, down, 1, up, down, 2.
Movement should start with a slow curling up of the upper spine.
Up, down, 4, up.
The fingers should slide across the measuring strip until the fingertips reach the other edge of the strip. The student then slowly curls back down until the head touches the mat.
Down, 8.
The Back Saver Sit and Reach is one of the test options used to measure flexibility in the FitnessGram. The Back Saver Sit and Reach test provides a reasonably accurate measure of the flexibility of the hamstring muscles. This test is very similar to the traditional sit and reach, except that the measurement is performed on one side at a time, and this test is done one leg at a time. This is done so that the asymmetry in hamstring flexibility can be determined and hyperextension of the knee is avoided. The goal of the Back Saver Sit and Reach is for the student to be able to reach a specified distance on the left and right sides of the body. The maximum reach distance on each side is 12 inches.
I just recommend getting a piece of paper and just drawing the heart and then draw a cross or a plus right here in the middle to divide it into the 4 different chambers. So one of the things you got to decide is what side is the right side and what side is the left side. For example, this over here, is this the right side or the left side? When you're looking at it here on the screen, it's to your left. But if somebody was to face you, this would be on their right side. So what's the right answer? Is it yours or their way of seeing it? Well, the way to remember this is you don't matter, but the person you're looking at or the patient is the one that matters. So that would make this the right side over here, and that would make this the left side. So we have the right, we have the left, A for atrium, and V for ventricles. More than one atrium, you say atria. Okay, so after that, we got to decide what side to put the lungs and the body on. Well, I'll just tell you first, the lungs go on one side and the body goes over there on the other side. You could do it the other way, but it's going to mess up the lines. However, this is the best way to do it. Here is the way to remember. It would have been nice if you look here, L for left, L for left, if the L for lungs was over here as well too, but it's not. It's just over there on the other side. So you just got to remember the L for lungs is not with the L's on the left side, it's over there. And then that's it for level 1. So now we're moving on to the next step, level 2, and we're going to draw the lines to connect everything. The pattern you're going to see is this infinity sign that we're drawing here. Somebody told me about this and I really liked it, so I'm incorporating it here into the drawing. So we got our labels, but we got to decide where we're going to start. Where's our first arrow going to go? Well, one way I like to start is inside the heart. Is the blood going to flow from atrium to ventricle or from ventricle to atrium? Well, the way to think about this is you get that body picture back out, and as you can see the line showing you right now, it's flowing from top to bottom. So as you see the highlight over there on the left, from atria to ventricles. The way to think about this one is, what's that force that brings everything down to the ground, that holds us down here, and the reason we're not floating? And yes, it's because of gravity. So gravity is generally going to cause the flow of blood to go from the top down to the bottom. Of course, it's not the only thing, but that's just a way to think about it to get started. So I'm going to draw our arrows on each side, from the right atrium to the right ventricle, and from the left atrium to the left ventricle. So the next thing is to decide, well, where are we going to go from there? Which one am I going to start at? The right ventricle, the left ventricle? If you notice, I made the wall thicker here in the left ventricle. The heart is a muscle. It's made out of cardiac muscle. And just like any muscle, for example, skeletal muscle, the more you go to the gym, the more you lift weights, the more you work it out, the bigger it's going to get. So the left ventricle is working harder. It's working harder because it's pumping its blood to a further distance. So the question is, what's further from the heart? Are the lungs further from the heart, or is the rest of the body further from the heart? So if I go back to that picture here, you'll see the lungs are right there, right next to the heart. The rest of the body, there's a greater distance that it has to travel. So what's going on is the left ventricle is pumping to the body, which is further than the right ventricle, when it's pumping to the lungs. So it's going to have a thicker myocardium, a thicker muscular layer. So the reason I pulled this picture up here is, one, you can see the thicker myocardium of the left ventricle. As well, you see this arrow coming down off the inferior lateral portion of this ventricle. But if you look here, there's no flow of blood coming out this way. It actually starts over here in the left ventricle, and then it makes its way up and diagonally almost towards the right atrium. So that's the way the real blood is going to flow in the heart. But when we're looking here for this diagram, the easier thing to do is to just draw out this way, and then later on we could do the real lines. Okay, so let's continue. The next thing we got to think about is, which chamber are we going to head to next? Well, we already left one of the four, so we only have 3 options left. You can do this through a process of elimination. One way is to think, what if I came back to the left side, to the left atrium? Well, look at it. If it went from the body, it would go all the way around to the left atrium, but then it would go back down to the left ventricle and around, and you keep going in a cycle. So then what would the purpose be of the right heart? It would really have no purpose. Okay, let's go from the body now, and let's say we were going to go from the body down and around, and we're going to go to the right ventricle. If we went to the right ventricle, well, look, we have a problem. Blood's flowing down into it, so we kind of have head-on-head collision right here, so it's not going to work. So our last option is to go up and around and down into the right atrium. If you follow the black arrow from the right atrium, you'll see it'll take you down to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, you're going to flow around to the lungs, and then there's only one chamber left to return to, and that's the left atrium. If you take a look at that design with the arrows, you'll see that infinity sign that you can place over it, which makes it nice and easy for you to draw. So that infinity sign that you've been seeing up there, well, you see it here now. Doesn't matter where you start, infinity has no beginning and no end, but you can go down, up, and over, down, up, and around, and over. So that's a nice easy way to decide how the arrows are going to go. So here are some questions now. The first question: blood returning to the heart from the systemic circuit first enters the... Well, you got to think, what is the systemic circuit? It's not the pulmonary circuit. Pulmonary means lungs, so systemic means the body. So you could pause this video and think about it before you see the answer, but you go back to your drawing, and it's blood coming back from the body. So coming back from the body, we're going to go here, superior and inferior vena cava, and then to the right atrium. Let's see if there's one of those things available. Well, we don't see a superior or an inferior vena cava, but we do see the right atrium. So it's going to be that one. Okay, the second question. The right ventricle pumps blood to, look at your choices here. You see some structures just to keep in mind. Again, you can pause this and think about it and go back to your diagram and look before you see the answer. But we go back to the diagram of the right ventricle, and it's pumping out. It's going out the right SL valve and over to the lung. So let's see if one of those choices is back in that question. As well, I just want to note here that there are valves between the chambers. So when you're going from atria to ventricle, you cross a valve. And then when you're leaving the ventricles, there's a valve. But there isn't a valve when you enter the heart. So in between rooms or chambers, you have valves. And then when you leave the chambers or the rooms, you have valves. So let's go back here to number 2. And you will see here, excuse me, you would see here the lungs, the right and the left.